I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of getting your first assignment set up. I'm going to get the assignment starter code checked out of your Google Classroom repository and set it up in CLion. And if you're not interested in using CLion as your IDE, that's perfectly okay. Just follow along up until the point that you have your repository cloned. So here we are on the course web page, and we can go down to the assignment. So we'll look at the first assignment, and there is the link for Github Classroom. If you're not already logged into GitHub, it'll ask you to log in. If you're already logged into GitHub, you won't see this screen. And then you can see here what it's doing is it's taking that starter code in that public repository and using it to build a completely new private repository just for you. And so if you follow that link here, then you can see your personal repository for this assignment. This is set up as a private repository so other people can't see or steal your code. And you can browse through here and look at different things. But the key piece that you're going to do is you're going to want to clone it so you have copies of that code locally. Now, because this is a repository you want to be able to push code into, I recommend using that SSH to clone it. So first I'll move into the space I have for this course. Which is course is CIS 263. You can see I've already cloned my sample code. And now I'm going to grab this repository, that's git clone, and that URL you see up there. And now we can see that I have that this new directory here. We can take a quick look inside, and you can see the different pieces of starter code here. From this point, you can use whatever IDE you want. If we want to play around a little bit, let's say I want to see if the shells will compile and stuff. So I'll run G++. Using C++17, turn all my warnings on. Matrix search sample test. And then we'll call it test 1 as the output. It does take a little bit of time to compile, especially compiling the tests. And now you can see that test 1. So we run it. Of course, we see some failures because the logic in that matrix code is missing, so it doesn't actually do anything. But you could do all your work from the command line or VI in the command line or something like that. I'm going to show you how to set up CLion if you prefer to use that. In the EOS lab, just type CLion at the command line, and that will launch the IDE. And the first thing you want to do is create a new project. Now, to create a new project, what you'll do is you'll come up to the location here at the top, and you'll change that folder to refer to the folder for your project. Now, I find it a little easier just to type it in instead of going through the big long list of directories here. And now I can look down and I can see the repo I just cloned here. So I will click that. I will also change this to C++17. I'm pretty sure I have a couple of things in the starter code that uses that C++17 syntax. So I'll hit create. It'll say, this directory isn't empty. Are you sure you want me to put a project here? And yeah, I want you to put the project right on top of the source code that you've already downloaded. And so it will build up that project. And you can see over here your starter source code. Now, there is one thing about CLion that's a little bit annoying, and that is you have to provide your own makefile. Now, this isn't real heavyweight. There's lots of clever stuff you can do with a makefile, but just to use CLion in this class, there's not much to it. I've already provided one here. If you look at this CMake list file, really the key thing you need is that boilerplate code here, the top 3 lines, so you could just cut and paste that into your own project. And then for every executable, you need this add executable line. You give it a name, and then you give it a list of the .cpp files you need. In the case of this particular homework, each executable only has one CPP file because all of the interesting code is all stuffed into the header files. Okay, I just noticed that there are 2 things that I need to correct quickly. The first is the CLion window is bigger than the screen. It extends off to the right. You can see that dialog box getting cut off there. And the other thing is, if you look in the upper right, you see where it says add configuration. That's not supposed to be there. The CLion is supposed to have already loaded up that make file and presented us with the buttons to compile and run the program. Not sure what went wrong there. I think it's just a quirk of me on the VPN. So let me fix that and I'll be right back. Okay, I think I got it. You notice up here now, instead of saying add configuration, it has a list of the 4 different executables. That's what you want to see. Hopefully you won't run into the same problem. If you do, post to Piazza and I will help you fix that. So now what we can do when you want to run something is you've got a couple of buttons up here. The first one that I'm pointing at here on the left is for building, so that'll do the compilation. If there's any syntax errors, they'll show up in that window at the bottom. And when you want to run it, that's what the green arrow's for, and that'll run the code, and you can see the output from the cout statement in that main file. And then the other thing you might want to do is you might want to be able to debug. So let me show you, for example, if I open up the matrix search header file where the code goes, I can click over here between the line number and the line of code. I put a little red dot there. Now instead of hitting the arrow, if I hit this little bug thing, it'll start to run the code, but it will stop when it gets to that line, and then down here at the top of the bottom window, you can step over the line, or if it's a function call, you can step into the line. Standard debugging stuff, not all that different than what you should have learned in 162 and 163. One trick about debugging is once you're doing that debugging, remember to use the buttons down here in that bottom window, not the top window. So let's say I want to just continue and tell it to move along. I need this green arrow here on the left, not the one up top. You click the one up top, it's going to start a separate copy of your process, and that's not what you want. Windows here also tend to get a little bit cluttered, so when they get cluttered, just that red stop button will get rid of some old debugging sessions you don't need. If you have any trouble, just post to Piazza and hopefully me or somebody else will get a response to you pretty quickly. I'll see you in class.